Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So this new development out of Illinois kind of went under the radar, but you possibly could have some counties in the state of Illinois that want to join Indiana. And we've heard a lot about Greater Oregon, and I possibly am going to be making a video talking about that if it becomes relevant in the news again, but not a lot of people have talked about this, and this is something that a lot of Republicans want to do in the state of Illinois. And it also, if it were to happen, which I'm not saying it's likely, but if it were to happen, the electoral map would indeed change significantly, as you would be taking electoral votes, depending on how many counties were to join, away from a blue state and then putting them in a red state. Not that many of them, but still. And this is a recent development because you see the fact that the Indiana House has passed two bills in recent weeks. One of them targeted downstate counties. Another one targeted Chicago sports teams, because you look at Indiana, they don't have an MLB team. The White Sox might be thinking about relocating to the point where they're going to try to get them to somehow move to Indiana. It doesn't seem like it's really likely to happen. I mean, the White Sox have been there for a very long time. And as a result, it seems like these measures are kind of done for these political purposes. And the Republicans in the state of Indiana are also targeting these counties downstate in downstate Illinois, saying, hey, you guys don't have any power in your state. Your state is controlled by Chicago and a few counties surrounding Chicago because, that is where the population is. But you have a lot of land, a lot of people still, a lot of counties. They're not able to really have much of a voice. They're really fed up with the state's leadership. Illinois, very Democrat state, but not only that, a very corrupt state historically. And they really don't like J.B. Pritzker. And you do see in Illinois, the Democrats, they hold every statewide office. They have a majority in the House and Senate. The House map is gerrymandered to hell in favor of the Democrats. And you have a lot of people that are just not happy about it. And Indiana, red state. Republicans have all the statewide offices. You have a supermajority in the House, supermajority in the state Senate. And in terms of the House map itself, in Indiana, you have, I think, two Democrat districts. One possibly, is trending right significantly, could flip by the end of the decade as well, depending on what happens. So you're kind of seeing this play out. And one of these bills would annex several downstate Illinois counties that want to join the state of Indiana. Now, we've talked about this way back in the day about West Virginia, here and there, Greater Oregon, could counties in western, or I guess you would say eastern Washington and eastern Oregon, these very, very red counties that are more culturally in line with Idaho, would they join Idaho so they could kind of have more power? Maybe it could give Idaho another electoral vote, which would take an electoral vote or two away from Washington, from Oregon in the process. You're seeing that, but Illinois would have to basically play along and take the deal. And that's the main catch, because it technically, you could say it could happen, but still, it's like Illinois is going to have to approve of it. They have Democrat control. They're probably not going to want to give up the control, but you have this frustration. These people don't really resonate with the leadership in the state of Illinois, and they want to be free from the power that you have in Cook County, which is the largest county in the state of Illinois. If you took out Cook County out of Illinois, Donald Trump either would have won the state or it would have been a swing state. It would have been very, very close. So that's kind of where you have a big population center that controls the state, but the interests are not really aligned with the people that live in the rural areas, to the point where these people want out and they'd rather join Indiana, because Indiana, at least culturally, it's more similar, and you kind of see that now. It's kind of causing this conversation to the point where Indiana could possibly annex 33 conservative-leaning downstate counties if these counties were able to, if J.B. Pritzker was allowing this to happen, which it doesn't really seem like it is. And then the article goes on to talk about the sports franchise. You have the Bears, their stadium, it's crumbling. You also have the White Sox that possibly could move, or at least into a new stadium. But again, relocating from Chicago to Indiana doesn't make sense. You already have the Colts there. There is no MLB team in Indianapolis. That might be more likely, but it's still not likely to happen, and still would have to pass through the Indiana Senate, which possibly could happen because it would benefit Indiana, would benefit the Republicans there. But again, even Republicans in Illinois, are they really going to be on board with it? Maybe a couple of them would be, but still, the state at large, like the article says, you have a majority of Democrats in the state house, the state senate, and you have a Democrat governor. And even if that were to change, why exactly would those counties want to leave Illinois? So it's not likely to happen, but just for fun, I thought we would take a look at this, because what if it did happen? What if we actually did see this happen? We'd have to really see how many electoral votes could realistically leave Illinois and go to Indiana, and how would it impact the electoral map? Well, first of all, Illinois would get bluer. It'd be harder for Republicans to win it, even harder than it currently is. But you talk about the electoral votes or the congressional districts, maybe you get 3 to 4. We'll even be generous here and we'll say 4. So 4 congressional districts leaving Illinois, going to Indiana. First of all, the map would kind of look weird, but let's just, for the sake of the argument, let's say it happened. Let's say they go down to 15. And then Indiana would go up to 15. So the populations would be fairly comparable if this were to happen. Obviously, the map would look different, but taking it off of the edit and putting it back on the fill, this is kind of like the swing electoral map. So let's say obviously Republicans would have Indiana, Democrats would have Illinois, but this would benefit Republicans in terms of the electoral map because they'd have an easier pathway to victory. You give them North Carolina, you give them Georgia, they're already there. You give them, Pennsylvania, I believe, and Michigan, you would already be there. Even if they just won Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, they'd get to 269. They probably would end up winning in the House at that point. Obviously, I think North Carolina is still going to be redder than a lot of these other swing states, and it does seem like Arizona and Nevada are moving to the right, but it's just a fun thing to really think about if this were to happen. And then you could talk about what could happen in like Washington and Oregon. Let's say you did see the counties in the eastern portion of those states leave Washington and Oregon. Maybe Washington goes down to, just 11 electoral votes. There's not a lot of people out that way, but Oregon would have to go down to 7, and then Idaho would go up to 6, and possibly 7 in the new map that we'd be seeing. But you could see that already out of the gate. You would just need to win one of these states, aside from New Hampshire, which probably, we'll switch back to Phil, would go in the Democrat column narrowly. There's signs that could be changing. There was a poll that came out today that shows that the midterms, it's like a dead heat in the state of New Hampshire. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but it's like, okay, all you need to do is win like the state of Georgia, the state of Pennsylvania, just one of these 4 swing states for the Republicans. Democrats would have to sweep all 4 of them just to eke out a narrow victory. So is this likely to happen? Not necessarily, but like, would I hypothetically support it? Yes, I think for the purpose of electoral votes, it would definitely be a huge benefit to the Republican Party, a brutal blow for the Democrats if they were to lose those populations to the neighboring states. But still, honestly, I really feel as if it's not feasible. It's not likely going to happen. And you will have a lot of Republicans who, still take pride in their state in these places. They don't like the leadership, but they're hoping one day, Illinois could have a reasonable governor, or Oregon or Washington. Those states is a little bit different because the far left is a lot of pull in places like Seattle and Portland. Illinois, depending on the year, they've actually elected Republican governors. They've been rhinos typically. And it's true that you're not going to get like a MAGA type of Republican in the state of Illinois anytime soon winning a statewide election. But could you get somebody that's like somewhat reasonable, maybe like a Glenn Youngkin type by 2030? It's possible. It depends. Illinois really hates their governors. that's something that is true. To the point where there's always a chance. If a Democrat gets in there that's extremely unpopular, you run some inoffensive Republican against them, they could win. Maybe they could start to clear out some corruption. You take what you can get in these deep blue states for sure, just so you can kind of reform them, make them livable. Because Illinois, I mean, it's a state that people don't want to live in. People have been leaving Illinois like crazy. A lot of people talk about New York and California. Illinois is a little bit underrated. A lot of people moving from, Illinois downstate to places like North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, these other states. They're moving and they're leaving and they're going and they're moving to these red states, and it's a major problem. And it's become such a major problem to the point where you have full counties that are willing to join states like Indiana. And you have support for it in both Illinois and Indiana. It's not talked about enough, but it's being talked about more because you do have this bill that was raised in the Indiana House, and now Illinois Republicans, they're the ones that are saying we want to join. Obviously, you have mixed reviews on that front. Some people do want to join Indiana, some people don't. It is a very, very far-fetched thing to happen. We're probably more likely to not only get Greenland and the Panama Canal, but also like a portion of Canada by the end of the 2020s, before you start to see states like messing around with their borders. But if polarization continues, could this happen in the next decade or so? Yeah, but also you could say, well, what about like a blue area in a red state? So let's say Georgia, Atlanta stops growing and then the rurals get redder and it's like an R+5 state. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's say you hypothetically had the Atlanta metro secede. Well, then Georgia would lose electoral votes. So it could go both ways. Texas with Austin, definitely Texas. The rest of Texas would be like a red state. But if you have like these, I guess you would say, oases of very, very liberal areas in red states leaving to counteract it, it could also end up being a major problem, and it would like balance out the electoral votes and things like that. So definitely there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of moving parts to this. It's not like something you could just snap a finger and overnight do, but you're seeing it. I mean, you've seen it in Virginia with West Virginia, with counties in Virginia. It seems like Virginia has kind of turned a corner a little bit, so you don't see those concerns the way you saw them back in like 2019, 2020. And then Greater Idaho, that's still being talked about. And now you have Greater Indiana. Is that even a possibility? Well, it's a long shot, but it's definitely fun to think about, and it's definitely something I thought I'd update you guys on because you guys like this kind of stuff. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.